Hey everybody, this is JDGaming back with another duel video for you guys. Today we are playing TeleTune Psychics against Blue Eyes White Dragon post-Shining Victories, and to be completely honest, this is the first time that I've actually played against this deck. So it is a bit of an experimental thing, as you can see. Lots of learning going on my side. But I think it was an interesting matchup because not a lot of people know how to play against Psychics these days, so it looked like it was a pretty balanced matchup in the sense that neither of us knew what the other player's deck was capable of. So this was my first personal look at Blue Eyes, so I thought it was a pretty fun game in and of itself. But let's get right into it. Just like usual, I will be taking this replay and basically giving you my thought processes on it, and then at the end I'll try to evaluate, what might have I done differently, or along the way I might do the same thing. Without further ado, let's get going. First, right off the bat, looking at this opening hand I have, I did go second because ideally in Psychics you want to be able to go second to get that extra card, so that you're not forced into an awkward situation where you have to just set a monster when ideally you'd be able to crash Witch if you draw it to get everything started off quickly. So at least as of right now, I find that it's better to go second. You can see in this hand, Jurigatos are nice, but they're not on theme. They're defensive, so they'll probably be able to survive with it. But like double drawing both of these and then having a power card that I really don't want to burn early is not that great. But this is actually a hand I thought wouldn't turn out too well, and it ended up being okay. So let's see. Opponent terraformings for the new field spell. That lets him normal summon an additional tuner like this, and then he goes and recruits some Blue Eyes cards. I have nothing that I have yet ready to commit, and that's fine. That does happen in Psychics quite a lot. It's not a thing that usually happens in every deck. Pause right here. But Psychics, as you'll see if you see a few more of these duel videos, it's just not typical in that it can actually survive longer than you would expect, not committing cards to the board, and then it'll still hopefully be able to go off in an explosive manner, make a bunch of plays all at once. Much like Tengu plants, pretty much how you have to commit something light like a Tengu and then go into your tuner so that you can actually make strings of plays. Well, it's similar in that regard. You want to set up stuff in your graveyard and then you can make your string of plays. This right here is actually Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon. My DevPro, for whatever reason, doesn't have all the images loaded quite yet, so that's why it's like that. I'm sorry for that, but I have no control on that right now. But pretty much it's the new level 9 Synchro Monster that lets you go and you could neither player can special summon 2 or more monsters at the same time, so that blocks pendulum summons, or soul charge, or even telekinetic power well, which is actually relevant in this matchup here. And then it says when a card or effect in the graveyard is activated, you can just negate the activation, which is pretty strong. Also great against this deck. And then during either player's turn, you contribute this Synchro Summoned card as a quick effect to special summon a light dragon-type Synchro monster in your extra deck in defense position, except Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon, but destroyed during the end phase. So you could think of things like Michael Lightsworn Archfiend. You could think of like Black Rose Moonlight Dragon, Stardust Spark Dragon. Those are really good candidates that you can bring off this card, if not the Blue Eyes Synchro Monster as well. So very powerful card that I have to deal with here. I didn't want to discard anything, so I was just like, I'm just going to go Raigeki. And a quick explanation of the chain here for those of you who may not be familiar with it. The reason this worked out in my favor is since my Raigeki is Chainlink 1, and he Chainlink 2 activated his Spirit Dragon's effect, whatever he brings out, so let's say he brought out Stardust Spark Dragon, normally you'd have Spark Dragon able to protect itself, right? But since it came out as Chainlink 2, the chain has to finish resolving before any new effects can activate. So what actually happens is the Raigeki would wipe it off the board, and that's probably why he didn't choose to activate or summon the Stardust Spark Dragon. It just wouldn't have done anything. This guy does have an effect if it's special summoned. It's not a when you can, which actually does mean its effect just activated at the end of that chain. And then in this case, it didn't really help because, again, its effect has to start at the end of the current chain that's already resolving. So that's why he couldn't protect himself with that effect. Still think it's the best idea, though, just because it's at least a themed card for them. So, I feel like the Azure Eyes would have more support than any of the other random guys they could have gone for. But yeah, I did have to burn that Raigeki early off. It was a big risk considering, if I couldn't deal with his bigger threats later, be a problem, but Psychics have some things up their sleeves. Silver's Cry is a quick play that lets him just revive a Blue Eyes monster pretty much, so max seed on that. Didn't think he was going to commit to the alternative, but I guess he was going for game. Blocked that with Jurigato. Gain 1,000 life in the process, which is great. Here, I didn't want to commit anything huge. The Soul Charge wouldn't have given me anything that great. Like, I could have made a random synchro. Like, I could have gotten Trish or something, but I was actually a bit afraid of effect failure. I didn't want to just commit Soul Charge and not be able to attack. Basically, it was too much of a risk for me to play Soul Charge at this moment. The reason I set this tuner is with these two cards, able to bring it back pretty much like a Monster Reborn. And, of course, the Hush Psychic Cleric able to banish it for its own effect. It's a really low-risk monster, and combined with Jurigato, I was pretty confident that I'd be able to survive with just those two cards. The Ghost Ogre is just to cancel out the alternative to prevent any Xyz plays, so yes, he does plus in a sense, but he loses his monster and his aggression is whittled down a bit. The reason I went for Cleric here is Bandit is decent, but because I no longer had a hand trap afterwards, I thought it'd be too much of a risk. He could just follow up with something big, and although I could set Power Well, I'd really rather not use it. So what I decided was to make a Hush Psychic Cleric play. So that lets you discard a card in order to banish one of your psychics. So I just discarded Bandit, banished the Ghost Ogre, and once this guy hits the graveyard, it's a mandatory trigger effect that will let you go and summon one of the monsters that was banished. So you can synchro with it or whatever. In this case, I decided to make a jumper play with it, just creature swap his monster with mine, sync for a Leo, still get the Ghost Ogre. So I thought this was a pretty decent way of getting over a big board that he had there. Return of the True Dragon Lords, I believe that's what its name is in the TCG. This is just another Monster Reborn for them, which is phenomenal. And then it also protects him from being destroyed, so that's what he did there. My whole idea here is don't commit anything else to the board if you don't have to. Play a bit conservatively, and that's what I did there. The reason the Bandit came out is mainly because there's no reason not to, as long as I can get its end phase effect off. So, I mean, that's what I ended up doing. He unfortunately does summon this big behemoth to get over my Leo, but using Teleport, I set up another jumper play. This guy can't do full damage, he actually only does half, but we end up finding here that as soon as he draws his next card, so he draws Melody, which lets him search cards in his deck, but if you look here, he has a Blue Eyes White Dragon, and that's pretty much it in terms of his search target, so he actually does play this Melody to do that. But it looks like he's out of place to be able to deal with this 4K beater, and as a result, he ends up scooping. And the cool thing is, using the OCG ruling to look at Espergirl's card, you can actually see that this next card I would have gotten is an Emergency Teleport, which would have further made for explosive plays. I probably would have gotten like Naturia Beast or something to lock him down. You know, I can't play one of these two cards because unfortunately I am low on life, but then again, I'm actually surviving with 150 life using 2,000 extra life points I borrowed from Jurigato here, which is pretty sick. You know, I ended up getting enough of a big board by addressing his threats, stealing his threats, to be able to lock him out of the game. So that's just one of the ways you can actually play with Psychics. To be completely honest, once again, I had no idea that this type of hand would be one where I would win. And I don't know, maybe if he played differently or I played differently, the outcome could have been completely different. Maybe he did have a way to play out that I just am not familiar with, but it looks like he didn't have a way that he was familiar with either. And so I guess that's one of the things with Psychics. You can actually use that telekinetic power well, not only to set up your synchro plays, your strings of summons using multiple tuners, but you could just bring back a Psychic Jumper, maybe even an Espergirl with it, to set up materials for a swap play, steal your opponent's best monsters, and all of a sudden, your opponent's biggest aggressors aren't overwhelming you, they're facing each other in a mirror match. So very different way to play Psychics from what you saw last time, but hopefully I'll get eventually one game where I wombo combo actually do what the deck was intended to do. But in the meantime, let me know down below what you think of the deck as it is. You can find the deck profile for the TeleTune Psychic deck down below as well. It's one of my absolute favorites, so hopefully you guys enjoyed that. And then looking back, I really don't think there's anything I would have done differently in this particular game, but if you would have done something differently for playstyle, or there's an error that I missed or potential risk I took that I shouldn't have, other than that Regeki in the beginning, do let me know down in the comments below as well. So thanks guys, this is JDGaming, hope you guys enjoyed, I'll see you guys next time.